What is up, ladies and gentle peeps? Today we're going to be going over the two most important and cheapest maintenance items that you can do on your OM642 to prevent swirl flap motor failure and the rubber intake hose failure. Those two items are the PCV valve, which is the positive crankcase vent valve, which actually goes into the intake side of the turbo. When that fails, it causes the turbo to actually suck in not just oil vapor, but like large amounts of oil into the turbo. And that gets into the charge air system in the car and can break down plastic and rubber items inside the engine. The second item is actually this rubber intake right here. This little rubber seal, when it wears out, causes oil to drip straight down onto your swirl flap motor, and that's the #1 cause of failure on these cars. Both of those items fail due to oil getting in, excess amounts of oil, and they wear down and break down over time. I'm going to do a complete time lapse on the disassembly and reassembly of the whole thing, as well as show you what the inside of that PCV valve looks like. Let's go ahead and get started. I've got the new one right here sitting next to the old one, and I've got the old one popped apart to give you guys a little bit of an exploded view of how these things work and what they look like on the inside. Really all it is it's just a rubber diaphragm that sits in there. It opens and closes the crankcase vent coming from here, comes up, and then it needs to go through this hole where this spring is, and this diaphragm right here will close that when the turbo pressure, because this is hooked onto the inlet side of the turbo, when it's sucking enough vacuum, it'll close this diaphragm, just like that. It'll plug it and prevent the crankcase vent from pulling oil out of here into the turbo inlet. Because when that turbo is spooling up and it's spinning, it'll pull more than just crankcase vent oil fumes out of here. It'll actually pull oil out of the engine and put it into the intake system. So that's why this part is critical for preventing more oil than what's necessary from getting into the intake and into the rest of the charge air system. The other part you need to be concerned about is this orange seal right here. This is the main intake seal for the intake side of the turbo. The intake flange of the turbo wears a groove back here, and that's what allows oil to leak from here down onto the swirl flap motor. Now, I deleted the swirl flap when I did the oil cooler seal job on this engine earlier, but this is what it does. You have oil that drips out of here down, and then this motor right here sits directly underneath this. And so it constantly drips oil down onto this intake swirl flap motor, and it gets oil inside of it and destroys the motor. When reattaching this hose to the new valve, this hose is supposed to have zip ties on this end and this end to fasten and tighten the hose down to the barbs on the valve and on the sensor down here. Mine did not have it. I don't know if it was they just got brittle and broke off in the past, or if some tech took them off and never put them back on. But I put new zip ties on here. These are reusable zip ties, so they can come off again should I need to take them off again. But time to reinstall.